Hi, my name is Holger Broeer and welcome to my YouTube channel, and I'm very proud to have my dear friend and mentor Dr. Fresco with me. We talk about sales, science and neuroscience, and his new book is out. His new book is about the brain and why we need to feed the brain, why we have to keep our brain healthy.
That is correct.
So tell me more about your book.
So yeah, I just excited too because finally finished my first book. It's called Train Your Brain for Success, and it's basically what the book says. I truly believe nobody can be successful in life without a proper working brain. And the basic premise of the book is if your brain is not in perfect working condition, if it's not fed correctly, if it's not healthy enough, it's going to ultimately lead to poor decision making, which ultimately leads to failure. So I actually have a diagram, if you don't mind.
Tell me first before the
Yes.
diagram, because I'm very intrigued. So how do you know that your brain is not working working properly? I mean, how do you know? Because usually I think my brain is in a good condition or good shape.
And that is a great question, because that's the problem. Most people don't know. You know, the thing with the brain is that it doesn't give you the obvious reason. You don't go to the doctor because now you're not focusing enough, or you don't go to the doctor because you feel you can't remember things effectively. People go to the doctor in a heartbeat because their stomach hurts or because they broke an arm or a leg. But the brain, unfortunately, everything that happens to the brain is long-term, and you can't really tell what's happening until it's too late. Like I've watched one of your videos where you talk about piling up the decision-making process that people make with your M&M example, which is a great example that depicts exactly what's happening with people's brains. It's like they pile a decision after another one where it's completely wrong, and by the time they realize it's too late. This is why, for example, people have Alzheimer's. Did you know that 97% of the Alzheimer's cases could be prevented? There's only 3% of the people that have Alzheimer's that actually have Alzheimer's because of a genetic defect, right? There's 3 genes that have been identified that if you have this variation, you're guaranteed to have Alzheimer's. But the other 97%, so that means that of 100 people, 97 people could have prevented Alzheimer's. How could they prevented Alzheimer's? By doing things ahead of time, throughout their life, making the right choices, in this case, the right healthy choices, so that they can live a longer and prosperous life. Wow. So, to answer to your question, how do you know? You don't know unless you learn, unless you educate yourself. So like you said, you're always looking for mentors. So who can teach you how to understand your brain if it's not a brain expert? So I always said, this is why I wrote this book, because this is a first step of letting people know, hey, this is how your brain works, and this is all the problems it can have, and this is how you can fix it. So it's kind of like a psychological problem. You don't know you have the problem until you know you have the problem, until somebody tells you you have the problem, and you can't start fixing it until then. So if you're a person that is constantly making bad decisions, you probably don't know. If nobody's telling you, hey, dude, you're making the wrong decisions all the time, there's something wrong with your decision-making process, how you know how to fix it? So this is kind of why I came about writing this book. It's so I give people a tool in their hands where they can say, okay, I have these issues, and these are the tools that I can use to fix these issues. Or, I didn't know I had these issues, and now I know. I mean, I am fortunate to say I'm a neuroscientist and I've learned about the brain, but I constantly learn all the time. As new technology comes out, as new research comes out, I learn things myself. I recently, which is at the beginning of my book, I talk about how I went and did some brain scans. And my brain scans show very interesting things that make total sense, that I'm like, this is why all my life, like for example, I have my business partner, Ty Lopez, always makes fun of me because my sense of direction is completely off. So which means if I have to go right, I go left. I have to go left, I go right. If I have to go up, I go down. And I never realized that until about 10, 15 years ago when Ty said, dude, there's something wrong with you because you always take the wrong way. And I started paying attention, and it's true. And I all my life, you know, for the last 10, 15 years, I'm like, what is wrong? Why do I do this? So I finally got my brain scan, and there is a part on one of my temporal lobes that has a depression, which probably is from an injury. I've played a lot of contact sports. I've done karate and martial arts. I've been a gymnast, so I fell a lot and hit my head more than one time. And it could have damaged a part of my temporal lobe, which when the medical doctor that analyzed my scans, the first thing he asked me is like, do you have orientation problems? Do you have a problem figuring out how to get to places and get lost? I'm like, yes. I'm like, you can see that on my brain scan. So to me, that was a discovery. And just like that one, I found other things about my brain, which I would have never known if I didn't do the test. That's why I tell people, maybe not go through the extent of getting a brain scan. They're very expensive. But if you can afford it, I say, by all means, do it, because you might learn stuff that you didn't know you had. You might find things that you're like, oh my God, if I keep letting this go, I will be sick forever. Or I'm not going to make it to 100 years old. I might die when I'm 70. And that's the thing with brain health, is that people disregard the brain so much that by the time they realize it, it's too late. And that's why I go back to the Alzheimer's. It's if you would have a healthy lifestyle, if you exercise regularly, if you do some of the things that we know are beneficial to fight dementia or diseases like dementia or Alzheimer's, then you are extending your lifespan without you even knowing. But right now, you're 20, 19, 15, you're eating pizza, hamburgers all day, you're hitting your head with, you know, too much sugar, everything, and it's having a toll at the end of your life, and you could have avoided it.
I'm more than happy, because I consider you, let's say, my mentor, and what I learned so far, what I learned and what I teach people all the time is, please, life means constant learning.
Yes.
Just because your school is over doesn't mean you don't have to read anymore. I mean, life means constant learning, and technology gives us the possibility to learn very fast so much about ourselves, our brain, etc. So I'm really, really happy that you brought that up. Not only the book, just saying, do a scan once or twice every 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
It's so important. I really love that.
People don't. I try to get a blood test once a year to see.
Same with me. I went to Europe last week, and my doctor just did a blood test, because how do you call it when you like to go very often to a doctor? Yeah.
Hypochondria.
Yeah. I'm close to that. I'm close to that. So it really gives me a nice feeling when he says, you know what, everything's fine.
Yeah, you're good.
The metabolism, gallbladder, spleen, blah blah, everything. Yeah. But I want to do it because I'm 50. Everything could be on the edge. So I want to know, and I want to know as soon as possible. Yeah. And by the way, I'm taking. I read so much about coconut oil.
Oh, coconut oil is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are medium chain triglycerides. So they're good for you.
Yeah. And in fact, it helped my overall blood results were. I don't know. I mean, I exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
It helps with cholesterol. It helps. There's research that backs all that up. Yeah. I don't want to be cliche, but knowledge is power. So I always tell people, it's like you have to be on a constant learning path. I'm always learning. If it's, whether it's marketing, because obviously I have my own products and I want to be successful with my companies, so I'm always learning about marketing, but I'm also always learning about how, just because I am a doctor doesn't mean I know everything. I mean, I graduated as a doctor about 15 years ago, so within 15 years there's so much change. So many new research, so much new stuff, especially in the brain field, that you have to keep up. You can't just stay stagnant for the rest of your life. So
that's so true. That's so true. And in Europe, when I talk and teach and mentor people, I always remember the story you told me about adrenaline and oxytocin. Like you trigger the one part, or you trigger the other part. You lost probably the conversation, because when there's adrenaline in your body, it takes minutes to recover from that. Or you trigger the oxytocin, and you have a nice, I'm not saying mellow, but you have a nice conversation. So you have to know what you're doing. So knowledge
and that's why knowing your body, knowing other people. So The other part of my book really covers on relationships and understanding yourself and your emotional self, right? Because if you don't understand yourself, you can never really understand others.
100%. That's what I said in another
So the
speech.
first step is you got to understand yourself. You have to know. Actually, I'll go ahead and do the diagram now so that I can show you. But so the basics of the book, we call it 3 pillars of life, I call it. The 3 pillars of life are, and I'm going to represent them with circles here, right? And one is wealth, represented with a W. The other one is health. And the other one is relationships. Now these are the keys. So there's millions of books about wealth and health and relationships. Some talk about 3, some talk about 2. And then finally there's like, what's your ultimate goal in life? It's like, obviously you want to be successful, but why do you want to be successful? Because you want to achieve happiness, right? So the goal, if you could think about it, it's like, what's the goal of any individual is eventually be happy. You don't want to be a miserable person. So happiness and have purpose, right? So I always say happiness and purpose, I'll put a little P here, kind of go hand in hand together. And the reason why I represent it this way is because if you can have all the wealth in the world, right? But you are not healthy, you're sick, you're dying, and nobody loves you. Well, you're never going to be happy. That's why it's a conjunction of all 3 things in order to achieve happiness. I've seen people develop a similar system where they put happiness as one of the pillars, but I'm like, no, happiness. So you can think of it as, you have 3 pillars, and this is happiness. And we'll put happy here. So what happens if you tear down one of these columns? Well, the happy is it's not stable, so you might not be happy. Now, this is where most people stop. Most books, most teachers, they kind of teach you here, but it's like, how do you get to wealth, health, and relationships, and ultimately to be happy and have purpose in life? Well, that's where we'll put here, your brain comes in place. So this is your brain. And in order for any of this to happen, you have to have a proper working brain. You cannot achieve wealth, health, and relationships without a proper brain. And inside your brain, this is where you figure out you. This is where you figure out how you work, how your brain works, how you feel about yourself. This is how you relate to others. This is where you understand emotions. Right? So once you achieve this, once you understand how your brain works, once you understand how to control your emotions, then eventually you can make the right decisions and achieve full happiness and purpose. Because think about it, if you can go backwards. If I make the wrong decisions, if my emotions are wrong, right? I'm going to make the wrong decisions, but my emotions are wrong because I don't understand myself. And the reason why I don't understand myself is because my brain is not prepared correctly, is not working correctly. And then these decisions eventually will lead to our 3 circles of, relationships. So some people call it love. I call it relationship because it's not just love. Because the relationship you have with the bus driver, right, can affect your day. Let's say, or you go to a Starbucks coffee and the guy at the teller treats you bad. Now it ruins your mood for the rest of the day, and that mood ruining might affect your decisions for the rest of the day. So that's why I say it's not love, because you don't love the guy at the teller. You don't love the Starbucks guy. Maybe you do because you've known him for years, but you might not know him. So, and then there's relationships outside your circle of people. There's inanimate relationships, what I call, which is like the sounds of cars. If you're trying to study for an exam or getting ready for work or trying to make things happen, but it's too noisy or the temperature is too cold, then again, it affects your brain in a way that eventually affects your decisions. So that's kind of summarizing the premise of the book. And in the book, I just cover pretty much everything so that you can eventually make the right decisions. so that you can ultimately be happy.
Okay, so let me ask you something, as I consider you as my mentor. Let me ask you something, because I experience people who are, let's say, 90% aware of this situation, but let's say 35, or an average, I mean, one of my clients, okay? He knows everything about it, but he's still stuck, okay? He knows he's doing constantly the wrong decisions, okay? So how can I help him? I mean, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, I understand.
Because at some point in your life, you just turn around and you say, you know what, I'm 35 and I know I'm smart, whatever, coming from, I know I took so many wrong paths, wrong decisions, and they pile up as a shitty whatever I'm living now.
Yeah.
But then he's asking me for help, and I say, okay, here's the solution, and he fully understands it, but still his brain is not able to correct the path.
The shortest answer is, he understands it, but he still doesn't believe it. He still thinks in the back of his mind that, no, I'm doing the right thing. Because when you submit to saying, okay, I need help, imagine a drug addict, right? There's some drug addicts that will go to rehab and do well. And there's some drug addicts that will go to rehab. They both know that they have problems, right? There's some drug addict, all drug addicts know they have a problem. Let's start with that. But some get out of it and some don't. What's the difference between them? So it's like, it's that willpower of like, okay, I can do this. I know I'm better. I understand this is bad for me. And the other ones are more like, no, yeah, I know it's bad, but this is so much better. And it's tied heavily to emotions, right? And in the case of a drug addict, for example, that emotion is reward. So they get such a rush from dopamine and all these exciting chemicals in their brain.
They're addicted.
They're so addicted that they can't, the urges, it's kind of like they have a balance. I have this problem with working out. I know I need to work out, and I work out. I work out every week, but I don't like it. I really don't like it. But you know the way I do it, the reason why one day I said, okay, I have to start working out, no matter what, I'm gonna make myself work out. I look at the balance. Right? And I say, okay, I don't like working out, but if I don't work out, these are all the problems I'm going to have in the long run.
Same with me, I just said it. I do things I usually don't like because literally I have fear, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I don't want to end up like with disabilities or obesity or whatever. So in this case, my fear triggers me. Okay, so I understand. It's really, I really like what you said about he doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. I say, I take some time and energy and effort, and I try to teach them and help them. And after 2 or 3 hours, I really see in their eyes, no. They hear what I say.
They hear it. They understand it.
Yeah, they understand, and they're smart. And then I say, you know what? Your problem is you're fully in denial. Okay, you don't believe yourself. You don't. Basically, you don't want it.
Yeah.
And maybe they're fear-based. Maybe they're.
And you mentioned fear is another big component of not wanting to do stuff. It's like they're scared. So I don't know what your friend's situation is, but if it's, let's say it's a money issue, it might be where he has to change jobs, and he knows it. He hates his job, he's not doing well, he's not making any money, but the fear of saying, I'm not gonna have a paycheck for the next few months until I get everything together, get my head together, it's so much, again, it's a balance, so much bigger than actually quitting and getting their life in track that they don't do it.
That is sad, and that
It is sad.
It is really, I'm really great about it, helpful, I mean, I'm really happy about your book. Because, I'm not grateful, because I'm really happy because I want to make people happy, because I totally agree. Happiness is what we all want. When we wake up every morning, who doesn't want to be happy, okay? So this is one I want to share, and that is why I love your book already, because happiness is the goal. And if you have some help, and if you can help people to be more happy, great.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
yeah. So usually I say, buy my book.
Yeah. Okay. So we can wrap it up.
But usually people should buy your book.
Okay.
Tell me, when is it coming out?
So the book, it's coming out. So it went for print today. It's going to be available on Amazon next week. So, and you can also find more information about or link to the book on drfresco.com. So I'll have a link on my website so you can get the book, and hope you guys get it. You know, you guys watching get it.
Well, I get one, really? I mean,
Yeah.
you signed
You're going to get
Okay.
You're going to get a free signed copy. Free signed copy for Holger.
Herman, I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thank you for having me here.